Mike Watson sits atop with a big gap between he and Kiat Lee. Then it is Phil Ivey, Elton Tsang, Jason Kuhn, Richard Yong, and Ivan Liao. Though 50 antes is certainly enough with which to play.
Yeah, and after we had 2 Hungarians winning the first event and 2 Dutch people winning the second one, let's see if we can get a double win this time again. Jason Kuhn, of course, we know that. He has studied short deck. He's very experienced. Ivan Liao, Phil Ivey, Elton Tsang, Richard Yong. I mean,
yeah,
these are all top players.
And for different reasons. Like, you know, guys like Liao and Yong are the type that are willing to go high risk, high reward. You could see them all of a sudden issuing a couple of bad beats and knocking a couple of players out in spots where maybe they were a dog pre, but wanted to gamble. 2 queens, 2 hearts, and a 9 here as the chip leader flops trips against the field.
Phil Ivey with a flush draw.
2 checks in front of him, and he will stab.
Yeah, Mike decided to check this time.
With the intention of check raising or just calling and seeing what develops. The board texture coordinated.
Yeah, that's the question now. I mean, this bet is kind of small. Yeah, he decides to go for this. Having the jack is also kind of nice if he should make a full house. That will improve some of the bluffs that Phil Ivey might have. So a hand like King 10 is drawing pretty dead against him.
The flat brings a king on the turn. 10 jack gets there. And Ivey holding a jack. Might be thinking about 3 streets here. Instead, he checked back.
Yeah,
has not improved on the river.
Yeah, Phil Ivey didn't want to get check jammed there and having to fold a hand with a lot of equity against pretty much everything. So decides to take the free card. And now decision back on Mike Watson, who certainly could decide to value bet here. Phil Ivey might play a king this way. A hand like King 10 makes sense.
And Watson is going to get busy betting his trips now. Oh, and look at this downsized bet here, just trying to tempt Ivey into a call, maybe targeting a king exactly.
Yeah, I mean, for that price, a king basically has to call.
Well, answer it. You're not busy or anything playing in the final table of a 75K?
No, that must be an important call.
He followed me. It could be the other way around, I don't know.
Elton limping in, Ivey doing the same with the ace-7.
Yeah, Phil Ivey looking to play a few more pots, it seems like, than some of these other players. He knows he's short stack now. Tries to win some pots.
9-10 jack, heavily coordinated board. Tough not to have connected with this one. Elton with middle pair and the gutty. Checks it over to Ivey. He's got a gutty.
Yeah, very weak gutty though, so interesting that he tries to represent something here. Mike Watson will have the weakest range here on the button.
Did have the open-ender with the queen, but just lays it down. And this 200K off of 1.3 was pretty risky for Ivey.
Did work out though.
Yeah, sure did. Elton didn't call with the 10s in the gut shot, so perhaps the players getting a sense that Ivey is on the tighter side. Well, the 2 red jacks of Yong did not want to call, and now the 2 red queens for Ivan Liao want to get it all in. Up front, under the gun. And 2 red aces for Phil Ivey, whose patience appears to have been rewarded. Snap calling.
Yeah, he's happy to just be heads up here. He doesn't want anybody else to call.
And he does have Ivan Liao covered, so In case of emergency, he'll still have 240,000 left, and Liao knows this is a very bad situation for him.
Yeah, that's as good as it gets. 73% equity pre-flop.
Both suits covered.
去頭位，去咗呢個位。
Ivan looking for a queen. Oh, there it is.
Wow, Queen 9-8, and you see the look on Ivey's face. He is not amused. Turn card is a 7, and now Ivey does have a straight draw.
Yeah, 6 would make him a straight here.
So he picks up 4 outs. 6 total, but he needs help, and there is the 6 on the river. Runner, runner. Top set gets downed by the 9 high straight, and perhaps a bit of justice, as aces are supposed to beat queens. Ivan Liao with a glimmer of hope.
Wow, what a run out.
Ivey putting some of those newfound chips to work, limping in. Richard Yong with the 2 6s, Korai, limping in as well.
Yeah, sitting in the hijack. Definitely speculative. Doesn't want to see anybody raising it up. Hopes to hit a set.
Watson on the button with the 10-8 suited. Happy to check it. And we'll have a 3-way pot with 360K in the middle. And the flop is ace, king, queen. So Ivey with the best of it. Second pair. Gut shot draw.
Strongest
And
range.
Yep,
So
exactly.
bets out. Easy fold for Richard. Pretty easy fold for Mike Watson too. Has the gutter, but of course could be drawing dead to the Jack 10. Or drawing to a chop rather.
Nothing interesting for Richard as the action continues. 6-handed here.
Yeah, interesting spot for Jason. He always has to worry about the big stacks on his left. Decides to let it go there. He knows Richard is shorter than him. Elton, one of the worst hands here in this game. King 6 on the cutoff.
Yep.
Only has to go through Phil Ivey though.
Paint and a 6 offsuit are really undesirable holdings here in short deck.
Does call though only 40,000 to call. Pot already 320,000 now. Phil Ivey debating whether to try to steal it right there or see a flop in position. Does check it. Oh.
10s full of 6s for Ivey. Doesn't get much better than that. And Tsang is actually connected here with a 6.
Yeah, similar spot like he just had where he flopped bottom pair on 9-9-7. Now he flops bottom pair on 10-10-6. Let's see whether he decides to put a small bet out there again. Checks this time. Phil
Ivey
Ivey
has
with
so much hand here, Korai.
yeah, he wants to get a little bit of value. Bet small, just 100,000, 30% pot bet.
And the other cool thing about this bet is it could very much look like just an attempt to pick up the pot on this paired board in position.
Yeah,
Elton.
that's definitely possible. We saw Ivy just betting at it with air earlier.
And
Elton might have
this
seen
is
that.
exactly what Ivy wanted to
Wow.
see, is Elton Tsang playing back at him under the assumption that Ivy is just stealing.
Yeah, Elton with a small raise here. He has the 6. He thinks he's blocking the full house. I mean, it is more like, or it is less likely that Phil Ivey has it, but this time he does have it. Of course, just smooth calls.
Yeah.
Wants to keep all the bluffs in.
And Elton did not want to see that. Queen on the turn. And it's Tsang going to be done with it, or is he going to continue to try to represent?
Yeah, weird spot here. He knows that Phil Ivey could have a hand like 9-7. And Elton would technically be ahead of those. Of course, a bit thin to value bet. Let's see. Yeah, does check it. It's tough for Phil Ivey to put his opponent on a range here. Was that just a stone bluff? Then he should check it back. His opponent could have hit the queen here, though. He's looking to get some value, probably a smaller bet. Yeah, bets a little less than half pot here.
As Elton pumped the brakes, and I suspect he's all done with his hand, Koray. I think he took his one shot there on the flop.
Yeah, that would be very ambitious to call here. Even if he would have the best hand here, there's the river still to come. And he knows that Phil Ivey might bluff at it too, if this was a bluff. But he knows he's up against Phil Ivey. And this is the big pot.
I'm convinced at this point that these two have tremendous history with one another.
Yeah, both Triton regulars, of course.
Feels as though Elton may have some PTSD, a little post-traumatic stress disorder from some bluffs that Ivey has shown him in the past.
Yeah, Phil Ivey just hoping that his opponent has a 10 here, maybe also. And Elton is looking at his chips, grabbing them.
No.
No.
Thinks better of it. Obviously, it's the kind of hand that really doesn't like any river.
Ace-6 for Elton Tsang. And the hijack just a little bit too weak, the weakest of all aces. And Richard Yong has ace-king behind him.
Yeah, that's what we do.
After, yeah. I mean, Phil Ivey, of course, goes all in the Jack-10, only having to go through to Richard Yong, who wakes up with a monster behind him.
Yeah, he
and
does.
to the races.
And this would be huge for Richard Yong, Koray, who just kind of languished on the short stack for so much of this final table. Remember, he was just a card away from being eliminated with pocket tens when Elton Tsang called for a 10 on the river despite being heads up against him. And that kept Richard alive. His son Wykin was eliminated on the bubble, and his ace-king is still in front on this very dry board for a Jack-10.
Oh.
Until the Jack of clubs somehow rolls off the deck, and now Ivey poised to take this 3.85 down. The river is a queen, and that's it for Richard Yong. An unfortunate turn card for him. Just when it seemed like he was rallying and the momentum was in his corner, we were maybe going to see a new face up at the top of the leaderboard. He is forced to go home with $241,000 for the 6th place finish. And we welcome into the booth Dylan Wiseman, who has made the trip here from the States after a very fruitful U.S. Poker Open.
Happy to be here.
Yeah,
I'm
good to have
stoked
you
to
with
watch
me.
the short deck as well.
And Dylan, a scholar of the game, also does some coaching, mostly in the PLO streets, as we see Ivey moving all in here with an ace-6, Kuhn with the ace-king suited. The action has been fast and furious at this stage of this final table, Dylan. And
I have a 6 again, my friend.
you're cut from the PLO cloth, so you like a little bit of gamble, and short deck obviously gives you plenty of that fix. And Jason Kuhn not exactly gambling with ace-king suited against ace-6 off.
Oh,
And somehow a
I have a
6
already.
on
One
this
more.
flop,
Very
giving
unfortunate for Kuhn.
Ivey bottom pair and the lead. Short deck replete with bad beats, as we know. Now suddenly on the turn, some opportunities for Kuhn.
Spots like this on the final table, the short deck events, all you can do is do your best to get it in as like a 60-40 maximum, right? So Kuhn did everything you could here.
He sure did.
Good luck,
And
guys.
unfortunately for him,
Fixin'.
the 10 pairs on the river, and it was not to be for Jason Kuhn. He talked about just being kind of on the brink of having a stack that might be able to relax a little bit, but just grinded. and did well for himself as ultimately he finishes in 5th place, taking down $315,000 and allowing the remainder of the field to enjoy a $93,000 pay jump.
So, Ollie, have you been enjoying these short deck shenanigans? I know that this is a newer game for you as well.
Yeah.
Is that a good switch up for you?
I've had an opportunity to cover quite a few short deck events, but obviously anytime you can come out to a Triton Series event and watch it being played by the guys who really were the forefathers of short
pioneers.
deck, it's fun. And then for me, it's always the contrast in styles that create the most interesting opportunities. And just from the few days that I've been here and the conversations that I've had the opportunity to have with a lot of these guys that play the game regularly, it has been eye-opening. And I think there's also been some development with respect to the game. Once upon a time, you would see people like Kiat Lee with that Jack 10 suited just now, ready to rip it in there in that spot. But there's been a little bit more thought, a little bit more computing power put into things, and folks aren't quite as apt to rip it in there as though those Jack 10 suiteds are always correct.
I think it makes a lot of sense coming from the cash game background that short deck evolved in. In a cash game, you have Jack 10 suited, someone goes all in for 20 blinds in front of you, you're not even thinking. You're like doing a little dance beforehand.
That's right.
But in a tournament format, as you said, with that introduction of computing power where you can really see how the math plays out in these more intense ICM situations, the future game value, all that jazz that the smart dudes are doing, you start to realize that the close equities just make it a different game than it's played in cash. Like the same thing for PLO cash games and PLO tournaments. Elton here does have a tough decision. You much rather want to be ripping it in with pocket nines than calling with pocket nines because almost always it's a coin flip. As we see here, it's a coin flip.
And that coin favors the ace-jack of Kiat Lee, who has put Elton to a decision.
Okay. I call.
And he's going to make the call.
Yeah, for the 7 blinds, it seems. I think it's even closer than most people would expect it to be because you just really want to be the player going all in these environments where antes exist, right? Antes are so powerful, and so it does help with the odds for calling as well. But when you're the one going all in, there's a probability of you not getting called. Whereas when you are the caller, no matter what, you're going into that coin flip.
Yep. No fold equity when you're the caller.
Yep. Exactly right.
So the wheel spins. And it comes up clean so far for the 2 9s on a paired flop.
Looks pretty for Elton, for sure.
Just give me a 9. And this right here. Huh?
I love the way that Elton sweats for his cards. He doesn't ask for like the middling card that'll give both players a straight draw.
Oh, the jack on the turn. And now Kiat Lee takes the lead, but Elton can still hit a 9. 7 or a queen, also an option, which would give him the straight in this 1.6 million chip pot. It's for his tournament life.
Oh.
Ace on the end. And that's it for Elton Tsang.
Good game, Elton, that series of events. Because now he is unlocked. Like, these pocket 10s might have even been a fold, the hand before, if Elton still is in. But now he just gets to go all in here. It looks like the ante's gone up, so he has about 22 blinds here.
Yeah, 60K ante, 120K on the button. In it gets ripped with these 2 10s. And did I hear a call? I sure did. It is Phil Ivey on the button. Was woken up with 2 red kings, and Watson is like, really? The minute I get the handcuffs taken on me, you got to just lock me up with 2 kings?
It's a very specific feeling to poker tournaments, especially people who've been playing poker tournaments for so long. You're just waiting for the spots to open up again. So you had to have those handcuffs on because you just know what you're supposed to do.
Right.
And this is a great spot for Watson. 2 10s is a very powerful hand. But when someone like Ivy wakes up with the kings, you know that. Oof.
Oh, and a king in the window. If it was bad before, it's horrific now. Nightmare fuel, this board for the 2 10s. 5.3 million chip pot.
It's very rare in short deck that you see 92 to 8 on the turn.
That's right.
That looks like it's GG for Mike.
Yep. Drawing dead without any help. And Watson, who was the chip leader for so much of this final table, dispatched unceremoniously. And Kiat Lee, the beneficiary, as he is going to go heads up against Ivy. Watson was able to realize the pay jump from 4th to 3rd of 130,000 as he will take home 538K just in terms of chips. But as we've seen in short deck, the fortunes can change rather quickly. And Ivy's going to start it off with a cooler here.
Yeah,
Ace-King suited against Ace-10 suited, Dylan.
So this is what I was talking about prior to the final table starting, is that Kiat should be limping a lot in this situation when he's the out-of-position player. With that being said now, and this is actually fascinating from Phil, he chooses not to go all in, which means that he's going to have two sizings here. He's going to have his smaller sizing, small quote unquote, which is a 500K, and this is going to be an all in and a snap, yeah? Not even, this is just a cooler. Nothing you can do here.
Yeah, absolutely. And is this going to be it right away?
I mean, at a really high frequency it is, right? And I love the way Kiat played this hand because we know what both players are supposed to be doing. Kiat's supposed to be limping, Phil is supposed to be raising, and so Kiat needs to find really premium combinations to play as those traps. Ace-10 suited is a very good hand to play as a trap re-raise here, but Phil just showed up with the nuts.
Yeah, the trapper potentially becoming the trap E on this queen 6-7 rainbow flop, which favors Ivey even more. 73% to 20%. Still some possible chops. The turn will bring it into focus, and the ace doesn't help Kiat Lee's cause. He still needs one of 3 10s here to avoid being eliminated. Just 2 hands into heads-up play. Is it there? Nope.
Quick one.
5, 6, 7, 9. Just got a double check and a quick wrap of the table means that's it. And Kiat Lee will finish in second place for $840,000, but Phil Ivey is your champ here in event number 3, the 75K short deck, adding to his $5.7 million in career tournament earnings. That new number will be north of 6.8. His second title in the Triton Series, his 7th cash, and what a